Have you ever heard, uttered, or even adhered to such a life wisdom? No expectations, no disappointment. This seemingly worldly wise and insightful maxim, like an indestructible armor draped over the emotional world, promises to ward off all external disappointments and hurts.
It advocates a seemingly detached, yet in reality low-desire approach to life, setting no goals, harboring no hopes, investing no emotions, thereby avoiding the risk of being pricked by the cold, sharp edge of reality. How tempting that sounds. And in a world with no emotional drops, no loss, no painful fluctuations, a place of eternal peace and security, we often regard this philosophy of no expectation as a sign of maturity, the highest state of self-protection.
Societal culture also seems to subtly encourage this trend. Lower expectations, smooth transitions, avoid turbulence. It's as if, as long as we can tune our hearts to the lowest frequency, no external noise can trigger a resonance. We cautiously rein in our desires, suppress those dreams that might fly too high and shatter. And even the intense longing for love and being loved must be gently enveloped in a thin mist called Zen-like, or Buddhist-style detachment, just in case. This mode of thinking is rooted in our instinctive avoidance of pain, our deep-seated fear of failure, and our extreme rejection of vulnerability. However, my friends, let us pause for a moment and examine this seemingly harmless wisdom from a deeper, more penetrating perspective. Is it truly a smooth path to inner peace, or a trap leading to the withering of the soul? Is it liberation, or a more hidden and even more dangerous form of self-imprisonment?
The great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the proclaimer of God is dead, who analyzed the abyss of human nature with his shocking insights and challenged all stale moralities, would scoff at this. He would mercilessly point out that this life philosophy of no expectations, no disappointment is not a manifestation of strength at all, but rather a profound weakness, a betrayal of the essence of life, and a complete castration of the will to power. For Nietzsche, life is not about seeking comfort and tranquility, but an unceasing manifestation of the will to power, an impulse to constantly transcend oneself, overcome obstacles, and achieve greater vitality. This will inevitably comes with risks, struggles, and the potential for pain and disappointment. He believed that true strength is not about avoiding failure and harm, but about drawing strength from them and becoming stronger after facing them. Nietzsche's famous quote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," is not an empty encouragement, but the core of his life philosophy. Pain and challenge are necessary catalysts for life's evolution. If a person deliberately suppresses their expectations, deliberately lowers their desires, they are essentially stifling the most precious and vibrant part of life, that primal urge to become more, to reach higher. Expectation is the flame of hope, the compass for action, the inner drive that makes life surge forward. Without expectation, there is no effort. Without effort, there is no growth. Without growth, life stands still, falling into a seemingly calm but actually stagnant eternal recurrence. Only this time, it's not an ascending spiral, but a sinking vortex. This strategy of no expectation, in Nietzsche's view, is tantamount to spiritual suicide, a castration of life's noble attributes. It deprives man of the possibility of becoming an Übermensch, Superman, degrading him into an last man, content with mediocrity and resigned to decay. Do you truly know yourself?
Is your insistence on no expectations, no disappointment, born from an understanding and transcendence of profound pain, or merely to avoid superficial frustration, choosing a deeper form of self-anesthesia?
We often glorify this strategy as being content with one's lot, or finding joy in contentment. But true contentment, after having experienced expectations, efforts, disappointments, and even brokenness, is a composure that remains unperturbed, not a preemptive severing of all possibilities in exchange for false peace. True joy and contentment is a detachment that comes from a deep appreciation of life's flavors, not a surrender of the right to taste due to fear of disappointment.
This psychological mechanism of no expectation in deep psychology is often interpreted as an extreme application of defense mechanisms, from repression and denial to eventual numbness and emotional detachment. When we systematically lower our expectations, we are also systematically lowering our investment in life, our openness to relationships, and even our exploration of our own potential.
We are afraid to give because giving might mean losing. We are afraid to trust because trusting might mean betrayal. We are afraid to dream because dreaming might mean disillusionment. Ultimately, we become like living in a transparent bubble, safe, yet suffocating.
Let's look at a historical example.
The great physicist Nikola Tesla, his life was almost the antithesis of no expectations, no disappointment. Tesla was a visionary dreamer with extraordinary expectations and visions for the future of human civilization. Wireless power transmission, global communication networks, free energy. These seemingly fantastical ideas at the time were the product of the burning fire of expectation within him.
He dedicated his life to them, sacrificing material wealth, enduring countless misunderstandings, ridicule, patent disputes, and ultimately poverty. What was the result of his high expectations? Immense disappointment and setbacks. Many of his inventions could not be commercialized at the time. His grand plans were repeatedly hit by funding shortages and competition from peers, and the halos of giants like Edison and Westinghouse at one point overshadowed his brilliance.
He was lonely in his later years, even somewhat paranoid. If he had adhered to no expectations, no disappointment, he could have stopped after discovering the potential of alternating current, not having to envision a grander world system, not having to face challenges beyond the understanding of his era. But he did not. He chose to expect, chose to pursue, and chose to face the immense disappointment that came with it.
However, it was precisely this lack of no expectation, this almost obsessive expectation, that made Tesla great. His disappointments did not crush him. Instead, like fuel, they drove him to constantly think and explore. The setbacks he experienced only temporarily delayed the realization of his dreams, but never truly extinguished the fire within him. To this day, we still benefit from his expectations that were not stifled by disappointment. His story tells us what truly drives human progress and shapes great souls is not the wisdom of avoiding disappointment, but the courage to embrace expectation, even if it means countless falls. The real danger is that when we actively give up on expectations, what we lose is far more than just the possibility of disappointment. We lose our passion for life, our longing for the future, our curiosity about the unknown, and our deep belief
in our own potential.
We sever our connection to the source of life's vitality, reducing ourselves to passive recipients rather than active creators. The peace brought by no expectation is not the tranquility after a storm, but a flat line on an electrocardiogram that is the peace of death. Imagine a person who expects no love. How can they truly commit to a relationship, experience its ups and downs, and feel its profound beauty?
A person who expects no success, how can they endure the blows of failure, learn from them, and ultimately achieve excellence? A person who expects no change, how can they adapt to the tides of the times, transcend themselves, and achieve evolution? This no expectation life traps us in a self-imposed comfort zone, seemingly safe, but in reality, a narrow and suffocating cage that deprives us of the right to experience the breadth and depth of life. It makes us mistakenly equate avoiding pain with achieving happiness. However, happiness is not the absence of pain, but a sublimation after experiencing the totality of life.
True growth often occurs at the intersection of pain and expectation. It is precisely because we have expectations that we are willing to give, to reflect after disappointment, and to find new directions in setbacks. A life without expectations is like a stagnant Dead Sea, without tides, without life, only in seemingly eternal silence. So, my friends, the next time you hear or are tempted to say, "No expectations, no disappointment," pause and deeply examine the true meaning of this phrase. It may bring you temporary peace, but it may cost you a long-term, perhaps even lifelong price. A mediocre, numb, lifeless existence. Life is inherently full of risks and uncertainties, full of highs and lows. Expectation is an instinct of human nature, the courage of being human. Allowing yourself to expect, even if it means possibly encountering disappointment, is embracing the completeness of life, feeling its rich spectrum. True strength is not about avoiding the storm, but about dancing in it, and even if drenched, feeling the warmth of every raindrop. We all, in fact, are escaping reality.